So hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer quick match gameplay. This time around I am playing as the Empire against the Wood Elves on the map Mushroom Cave. The Wood Elves led by Sind with a 5. So yeah. So recently I've been trying, as well as in my Norsk videos, I've been trying to give a shot to some units that I don't normally use, and I just kind of demonstrate them here and just try them out personally just to see how they work. And so I wanted to try out a bit of a different build here with Empire, as well as just a build that could be flexible against anything the Elves brought. So for my Lord I brought a Boris Stodbringer on an Imperial Griffin, of course. Terror Bomb, he causes terror bombs, he has Crush the Weak, he has high mobility, Foe Seeker, Fierce Onslaught, Stand Your Ground. So just a very strong Lord who can flex around, kind of hit the Wood Elves wherever I need him to. You need a lot of speed and mobility and flexibility to kind of match the Wood Elves where needed. And the Wood Elves can bring a skirmish comp against Empire, which can be very difficult to deal with because Empire doesn't have, their infantry is very squishy and they don't really have the best of shields, and their own skirmish units can't really match the Wood Elf skirmish units in a trading fight like the Dwarves can, for example. And actually they can be kited by the Wood Elves fairly effectively. Now what I backed Boris up with here was a Lore of Life, or sorry, not a Lore of Life, a Bright Wizard. So Lore of Fire. He is coming in with Flaming Sword of Rune, Fireball, and Cascading Fire Cloak, but most importantly he's coming in with Kindle Flame, and Kindle Flame gives him a 12% damage bonus to, or 12% fire vulnerability to all enemies. And I did bring 2 units of Knights of the Blazing Sun to make use of that, and these guys do have fire damage, and more importantly they have very high speed for Empire Cav, 72. That's not quite on par with Bretonnia Cav, but they do have a little more armor than Bretonnian Cav, and they do fire damage. They actually have magic resistance, which makes them an incredibly powerful unit against Wood Elves, who tend to have a lot of magic damage and tend to have a lot of fire vulnerable units. And both these units are escorted by a single Empire Captain, coming in with all his perks: Hold Your Ground, Foe Seeker, Furious Onslaught, on a generic a non-barded horse to get maximum speed. So he has 80 speed, very solid, very mobile. Frontline composed entirely of swordsmen. Swordsmen will trade very efficiently with the sorry about that, with the usual Elvish front line of Eternal Guard, which is what I was expecting, and there's a unit of Sigmar Sons in here as well, and these guys will do pretty well against Elvish units as well. Behind them, Flagellants. These are probably one of the best anti-Elvish infantry for the Empire that they have. They will do amazing against any Elven infantry, including War Dancers, which is pretty huge. Especially if they can get their charge off into the War Dancer, they can actually even win in some situations. And then behind that, for my range contingent, I did bring a unit of Silver Bullets and the Mortars. Now the Silver Bullets, they do have less range than Elven Skirmish, but they have stock, which means that I can actually get into decent position to shoot at the Wood Elves without being annihilated beforehand. And Mortars are just a very solid pick against the Wood Elves in general, because they do have very large splash, very solid damage against unarmored targets or lightly armored targets, and they have good enough range. The Elves don't have good artillery. Well, they don't have artillery, so I can force them to come to me, and that's kind of my goal here. My opponent, on the other hand, went with a very aggressive build. Brought 5 units of Dryads here, and 3 War Dancers with Azrai Spears. So for his Lord, he did take Orion, and interestingly enough, he did strip off the Bombardment spell. But he did bring the Horn of the Wild Hunt, and he did bring the Cloak of Isha, as well as the Hounds of Orion. So that's a pretty powerful disruption spell. And they're kind of like the Hounds of Gehenna from the Lore of Metal. And alongside him, he brought the Spellsinger of Life with Earthblood, and of course that all-powerful Dwellers Below. She's on a unicorn, I do believe, or a horse. Keep confusing. I keep forgetting that the Elves only have horses, I think, and it's not a unicorn, right? Yeah. And then, of course, the 3 Azrai Spears here, and they're kind of here just as a flex unit to support my opponent's front line. His front line is composed of 5 Dryads, and the Dryads will perform pretty well against most Empire infantry, and they do dish out magic damage, but more importantly, they cause fear, they have physical resistance, they're immune to psychology themselves. Basically, this entire army is immune to psychology, with the exception of the Spellsinger and these 4 Deepwood Scouts. And Deepwood Scouts with Swift Chargers are very, very strong against Empire, because the double tap with the 2 arrows they fire will just annihilate most Empire infantry. So without further ado, throwing things into high gear here. Immediately, of course, I couldn't see the Deepwood Scouts right off the bat, but seeing what little my opponent had on the field, I could guess that his units, he was probably hiding something somewhere. I did anchor my position with this pit here, so that I could have kind of protect myself from any flanks coming in from this end, assuming that my opponent hadn't decided to do that. And as you can see, my mortars are already opening fire. They're already hitting these poor Dryads, and dishing quite a bit of hurt. As you can see, that was about 700 damage in a single volley from the mortars, which is pretty huge. Now my Knights of the Blazing Sun here are lining up, and they are going to launch a massive charge here against what I suspect are the Deepwood Scouts. Shortly, I think a little while ago, I spotted them. And now my Knights are just kind of plowing in. These guys don't have armor piercing, so even though the Knights don't, and they do magic damage, which is doubly bad against the Knights of the Blazing Sun, who have 20% magic resistance. And now instead of trying to go for the archers, I plow into these Dryads, and you can see how amazing this damage is. Though about half the Dryads' HP gone immediately, and about a fifth of their models is gone immediately as well. These other Dryads get hit as well. It's important to keep in mind that with Kindle Flame active, Dryads have 52% fire vulnerability. So they're taking 50% extra damage from the Knights of the Blazing Sun. Empire Captain's in here with Foe Seeker Pop. This other Empire Captain is on top of these Deepwood Scouts. Unfortunately, my opponent is on top of bringing his Word Answers with Azrai Spears, and I didn't notice them in time, so they are doing a massive amount of work to these poor Knights of the Blazing Sun. More importantly, though, I was not on top of moving my infantry in, and if they had been there to back my Knights up, I could have definitely had a much more successful engagement here in the beginning. Now, unfortunately, most of my units, enemies' units, are not susceptible to psychology. So the whole Terror Bombs from Boris is not particularly strong. And I think that if you're playing against Wood Elves, they are a faction where you should not rely on Terror Bombs or psychology to win you the game. Mortar's still teeing off on these archers. Unfortunately, the archers are all distracted by the Empire Captain, which is huge for me. It opens up the opportunity for my handgunners over here, the Silver Bullets, to open up on the Slaughter of Life Spellslinger. It also means that my infantry is relatively unmolested here in the middle, where they're crushing these Dryads. And as you can see, this last contingent of swordsmen just marching in gloriously into the fight. And now you can see the Flaming Sword of Rune is going down, which means all this infantry is doing 52% more damage to the Dryads and a decent amount more to the War Dancers. War Dancers over here on top of Boris. Boris is getting annihilated, so he's going to have to kind of march out fairly quickly. But this infantry, these Dryads, just getting destroyed by the Empire infantry. Flagellants are normally pretty good against Dryads. Now they're even better. Unfortunately, the Silver Bullets over here are going to get caught by the War Dancers with Azrai Spears because I was not paying good enough attention to them, and I didn't position the Bright Wizard to intercept them last second. This Empire Captain, though, has come back, and he's charging in to go after these Deepwood Scouts. I do believe I casted a Flaming... No, I didn't cast a Flaming Cloak, okay, on the Captain. I'm trying to get the Captains into my opponent's backline, and fortunately for me, not so fortunately for my opponent, he is using Orion in range mode, which means he's not doing that much damage. Unfortunately for me, though, this crazy Dweller from below came up and annihilated a massive chunk of my infantry blob, and that was very, very painful. And I actually didn't notice this at the time. I just thought my infantry had taken massive casualties and that were kind of brawl in the middle. Now, Knights of the Blazing Sun are trying to disentangle themselves now that these War Dancers have been dealt with. Mortars are still firing away, chipping away at my opponent's strength, and Boris is finally coming back at about half HP. And at this point, I'm getting kind of desperate, trying to use my Empire Captain to zone my opponent's troops away, trying to push these swordsmen into his archers, but it's not a good idea. I honestly should have regrouped, should have fallen back, made a new line of defense somewhere around here, dealt with these War Dancers, dealt with the Dryads, and been done with it. Unfortunately, the Deepwood Scouts are just so quick that my swordsmen are not able to come to grips with them. Empire infantry is not particularly fast. I do fire a fireball here at Orion, and it hits him for a very healthy amount of HP, about 1,000. Knights of the Blazing Sun are reforming ranks and ready to launch another charge. And I'm just trying to force my opponent's infantry away as best as I can. In the meantime, these War Dancers are absolutely annihilating my poor Silver Bullets. I do drop Boris on them, but I can't rely on Terror Bombs because these guys are immune to psychology. So while I can perhaps rout them off a little bit, I do break them here with the charge. Unfortunately, Wood Elf infantry has so much psychological immunity. The only units, I think, as far as element infantry goes, that are not immune to psychology are the Eternal Guard, actually. So, definitely a bit of a tidbit there. The Wood Elves are... and now with the new Regiment of Renown, they even have an Eternal Guard option that has Unbreakable. So unfortunately, my Knights are getting routed or slaughtered. These swordsmen are broken. Over here, this Empire Captain, though, is still attracting a lot of attention, and I think that is huge for me. My opponent is definitely, I think, misusing Orion here a little bit by keeping him in range mode instead of just going for melee. And I'm definitely, and now this opens up the opportunity. The fact that all these archers were distracted, this opens up the opportunity for me to push my handguns forward and open up on this Spellslinger of Life. Over here, these Dryads got routed off. One model left. Mortar's still firing. Swordsmen are trying to fall back. I'm trying to create a new line of defense here. These swordsmen are still retreating. Knights of the Blazing Sun are recovering slowly but surely. Boris over here trying to rout off these War Dancers once and for all. And this captain's basically dead. I think he dies there. Yep, there we go. And now, unfortunately, these handguns they do get spotted, and my opponent does push infantry into them, but they manage to shadow the Spellslinger of Life, which is huge for me. That last little shot, enough to shadow the Spellslinger, and that means that I don't have to worry about any more spells hitting me, and now I'm going to be able to pull back the handgunners. Unfortunately, here I make a very major mistake, and I only have them walking instead of running, and they still have a lot of, I actually have pretty high vigor, so I should definitely have them walking, I should have them running, and I'm trying to push in with my infantry, just trying to stop these War Dancers, save these handguns. And Boris is way out of position. I'm only now trying to pull him back. Fortunately, this did give him an opportunity though, to recoup his health a little bit. And these Knights of the Blazing Sun are wavering, but they will recover, and I think I will be able to throw them back into the fray. Unfortunately, these swordsmen are, I do believe, just gone. They're not coming back. These archers, though, all coming back. A lot of them are still pretty healthy or as far as model count goes. They're going to be able to dish out a lot of pain, especially these flagellants who have no armor to protect them. These poor silver bullets getting caught. I do drop cascading fire cloak on them just to give them a little bit of that physical resistance. They do get terrified by Orion, who does cause terror, and yeah, now they're on the run. War Dancers with Azrai Spears here, getting caught up by the Bright Wizard and Sigmar's Sons, where they're making an attempt at it. Boris coming back, trying to save his handguns. Going to go after these War Dancers. And shortly, I will finally notice the Knights of the Blazing Sun and bring him back into the fray and try to get him on top of these War Dancers to save those handguns. My infantry over here is just getting annihilated. You can see the flagellants just getting torn apart. Now, fortunately, I do believe that there is some friendly fire going down as well, and that will help me out a little bit. And yeah, over here you can see, I do believe, I'm not even entirely sure if this is my cast or if this is my opponent's cast. Flaming Sword of Rune goes down, and it's actually allowing Boris to do quite a bit of hurt here. Him and the Sigmar Sons are able to tear up Orion pretty well. I don't believe Orion doesn't have any built-in vulnerability to fire, but he's still there still is a bonus damage associated with Flaming Sword of Rune, which is nice. Now, unfortunately, Boris is getting focused by the archers, but the archers are running out of ammo. Some of them are already out of ammo, which is good for me. I still have a handful of flagellants here, and a handful of these Sigmar Sons. Those are unbreakable units, and that is huge. Over here, the Knights of the Blazing Sun courageously held off the War Dancers with Azrai Spears, and now my opponent's army is definitely completely shattering, leaving him with only Orion. Now, Orion does have the Cloak of Isha, so he's going to be very resilient, but Boris is very healthy. He still has a little bit of, only just hit his region cap, and he's not a bad melee combatant, so and Orion has very low melee defense, so Boris should be very, very capable against him. I do fire Fireball, which I think does more friendly fire here than damage to Boris, or not Boris, Orion, which is definitely a bit of a mistake. He does fire off a spell here, but fortunately all these units are unbreakable, so the Hounds are not going to be able to rout my army off. And now I'm just going to be able to kill off Orion slowly but surely, and he'll be gone. So definitely a bit of a tight match here. That's game right there. But definitely a bit of a tight match. I think I definitely like this army. I definitely messed up by allowing my army to get caught by those dwellers from below, which I didn't even notice before. I was so focused on some microing and some of the other stuff going on, and I think that was definitely a bit of a problem for me. But at the same time, Knights of the Blazing Sun are amazing against Wood Elves. They're a little cheaper. The fact that than Demigryphs, and will practically perform just as well against the units you need to perform against. Most Elven units do not have much armor. Those that do are usually vulnerable to fire, and especially if you combo them with the Lore of Fire Bright Wizard with Kindle Flame, you can make these guys absolute beasts against a lot of Wood Elf units, especially those Dryads. And you can see in the early game where I just practically annihilated a unit in one single glorious charge of the Knights of the Blazing Sun. Plus, they're a little more mobile than Reiksguard and Empire Knights, so that is definitely a nice little advantage there. Bright Wizard did okay. Boris did okay. He didn't have much. Unfortunately, the Griffin only really helped him with flexing around. Swordsmen didn't do too great. They're not really a match for Dryads. They're more better suited against Eternal Guard, which is what I was expecting. Flagellants still did pretty well, as the Sigmar Sons. Silver Bullets focusing on priority targets. Mortars did very good, given that they're very cheap. They're actually just barely more expensive than the Deepwood Scouts. So they definitely did work. They actually gained a chevron, I think. They only came in with one. And Empire Captains did some work. The biggest contribution from the Empire Captains was tying down these archers long enough for my army to win kind of that main central engagement. But yeah, great game to my opponent. Great game to send here. Tooth and nail was a very close match. My army, as you can see, basically just kept afloat by the fact that some of those units were just unbreakable, and my heroes. So definitely a very good game. I do hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below. If you have any comments, criticism, any questions or about quick match or about the comp, or if you want to request any units or comps to be run, demonstrated, be sure to post those down in the comments, and I'll respond as soon as I can. As usual, I appreciate you all for watching, and bye for now.